hard. So I'm going to record this. I got there eventually. I did share a survey as we were starting. And for those of you who are just coming in the door, I am going to post this in chat again. So if you've seen it already, you could ignore the link. But this is a quick survey to fill out about what you're hoping to get out of this session today. So these are my goals. We're going to talk in a moment about your goals. That's what you're sharing with me through the survey. And I'm just going to let you know a few of the things that I like about Google Apps. You see I had cool presentations in here. The link on here is the same one of the survey that I posted. So first thing I want to make sure that we're all clear on is how do we access Google Apps and where do we get to it? What do we use it for? So there's a few different ways you can get in there. And I'm screen sharing, so I'm going to go out of my presentation really quickly and navigate over here to the college website. I'm from the library, so everything is library centric. But what we have on here are tools for logging in, and you can actually get into it from both the student login page, or if you open up the employee side of the college website, there's links on the employee login page. I do want to pause and just see if we have any questions real quick before we go in with logging in.
Yeah, I've got one. I noticed there's a Google Drive and a Google Sites.
Sure.
So which one should we be looking at?
Yeah. So if you're looking on here on the employee side, this Google Apps, it will take you to the single sign-on. And for anything you're getting into with your employee ID, you're going to be using your SSO and then your little Duo login. And when you get into this homepage, Los Rios has given you your Google Drive right here, and students actually see the same thing on their screen, and then Google Sites. Those are just different tools from the Google Apps for Education. So Google Apps for Education refers to all the different tools that they offer. And they actually offer more than what's even on here. They have Google Calendar. And if we go into one of them, which we're going to go into Drive today, we can explore some of the others if you'd like to know. I'm going to open this in a new tab because I'd like to find my way back. So if I go into my Drive, and if you notice that there's this little, it looks like a series of dots in your upper right-hand corner, like a spectrum almost. And if you click on that, it shows you all the different applications that have been enabled for Los Rios that are related to Google. Hopefully that answers your question, John, but we can go dig in a little bit more too. So logging into Google Apps, you can go into it from one of the login pages on the employee login or on the student login. But anytime you're going into this Los Rios hub, you can get into it as one of the tools that are available to you through your login. All right, I'm going to pause. And before I go too far into practicing new things, I want to see what you guys said on the poll. Is that okay? So I gave you this little flex survey. So hopefully it looked similar to this on your screen. And I wanted to know a little bit about what you already knew about this. And you might have noticed that I created this using Google Apps. I did a Google form, which is one of the things you're able to create through Google Apps. And this is the side that I sent to you. It's my participant side. And I also have the user side on my side here, and I can go right in. This is where I created it, and I can go into my responses, and I can see how comfortable we already are about using Google Apps. So there's a few folks who know a lot about it, a few who know a little, and some who may not know very much at all, and that's great to know. Thank you. And then what topics would we like to learn more about? So we have a lot of interest, which is wonderful. We may not be able to cover everything today, but hopefully you leave feeling more comfortable navigating and exploring and testing things out, because that's really what I would like you to come away from this with. And then our top responses, what are we most interested in learning about? So for me as a presenter, I can get a quick snapshot of what we'd like to know. And it looks like our groups communicating with a group is a great way to do this. Awesome. So our second choice was drives, storing and sharing information. Thank you for taking the time to fill that out. So I've given a quick demonstration of how I used a Google form. For me, this was really helpful to gather quick feedback from a group. I used Google Forms in a variety of settings for my work. I'm a librarian. I do things working with students and teaching. I organize projects in our department. I schedule my peers for different trainings or for their sessions. So I gather information a lot of times using a form because I can then have it to analyze and use in a lot of different ways. All right. I'm going to come back into this form and give you more information about it, but I do want to go to this, one of these top things that we were interested in using, Drive. And I think we'll just kind of start with some of the basics so that we're familiar with some of the layout and tools that are available in these Google apps. So we navigated into our Google apps by going to the employee login, logging in. We went to the Los Rios hub. And the place that I usually go from here is right into Google Drive. Google Drive is like a virtual storage. So if you're used to on your computer or laptop that you use, you have your documents and you might create folders inside of there. It's the same idea, but it's just a cloud-based storage. So Google Drive is that same kind of thing. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here in Google Drive and just kind of show you what I have. You probably have some things in your drive too. Don't get overwhelmed because I have a lot of things in my drive. So I clicked and opened it. In this drive, just when we're looking around the page, at the top, you have the ability to search. So earlier today, I was preparing for a presentation that I was doing, and I was searching for things on Board Docs. Board Docs is the tool we use for meeting minutes for participatory governance. I was trying to find a file so I could just search for it here in this search box. You can also search by names. So if you think, oh, Emily shared a presentation with me, where is it? You can put in my name and you can find the presentation that I shared. In the help, there's tools and helps and support directly from Google. There's a lot of information provided by Los Rios as well. But if you need help with using things in here, if you're having technical difficulties, it may be more of a district support that you would get help from. The settings, you can get in here and you can change your preferences in terms of layouts and menus and so forth. Drive for desktop, I'll show you a little bit about this at the end. It's a little bit more, I don't know, I use it, but may not be necessary for everybody. And then I'm moving around my, this is my Flex or my Zoom images. I showed you this Google Apps. These are all the different tools that are available from Google that Los Rios has enabled in our applications for education. And then I can see that I'm the person signed in and my information that's signed in. So I want to pause really quickly and just ask, does anybody have a Gmail account that they use personally? Anyone? I have one. So I use one for personal activities, and some of us who've been in Los Rios for a long time may have even set up one under our email address many years ago before Google Apps for Education was something that the district had contracted for. So you might have a Google account or a Gmail account set up under a different name or user ID. And one of the things that's kind of nice about, I'm using Chrome right now, and I have it signed in under my personal Gmail account, and I'm able to do that and go back and forth between different profiles. But when I'm getting into Los Rios things, I really want to be signed in through the Los Rios hub and into my drive, and then it'll show my W number at apps.losrios. And when I'm using that account, I have the ability to share and use all of the tools here in Los Rios. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have a personal Gmail account and you're having trouble figuring out, I'm not getting the document that you shared, this can be somewhat common. You want to double check your sign in and make sure you're under this. It's your employee ID at apps.losrios.edu. Any questions? All right. Our drive is a storage kind of file, if you will, and it is, I'm gonna try to change this really quickly. It is a storage file. So if you notice over here on the left-hand menu, I have my drive and I have a lot of folders because I do a lot of stuff in Google Apps. And so all of my folders, and within each folder, I have documents. So it's just like file storage, like you might have on your desktop or using My Documents, or even for those of us who've been on campus, using one of the shared drives on campus. So that's a good question, Irma. We're gonna go into an example of shared drives and shared with me. Thanks for asking. So in my drive, one thing I just want to show for basic navigation, if you want to create anything, you have this new button, this plus, and you can create a new folder to organize yourself, which I love to do. You can upload files. So if you're just using this kind of for storage and for sharing, you can upload a file like a PDF or an Excel document or a Word document. And that's real easy. It will just allow you to search where you have it saved on your computer, and you can grab the document and upload it. In this new drive, you can also create a brand new Google document, a sheet, a slide, a form, or other types of documents. One of these things that I would just want to let you know is when you're creating these new things, if I created a new Google document, it's kind of like opening a brand new Word document. I can title it and I can type into it, and I've got all my file settings, and you can actually, right here, it will create this document. It'll automatically be stored in your drive. And then you can organize which folder you want to put it into after it's created. It will also show up if you were to go to your documents page. This is only Google Docs. It will show up in this page as well once you've listed it. So Leslie asked, if we upload a Microsoft document, does it automatically convert to a Google document? So let's test this out. It does not automatically convert to a document, but you can once it comes into. So then maybe I'll be correct in that. So file upload, and let's see, I don't know if I have a great one. Let's do this, logos and letterhead. That's a nice one. I've got, oh, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. All right, let's try something else. I had letterhead in there, but it's got stuff in there. All right. We're just gonna do this. I have to do my review this year. I've got a copy of my self-evaluation for myself. This is for my performance review. And if I take this Word document and I upload it, it will show in the bottom right-hand corner that it's uploading it. And it will automatically be placed into my, my drive. And then the thing it will do is I have mine set to sort by alphabetical order. So name is the way that it's sorted, but you can sort by different things if you want to. And my, what is it called? Self-study. self-study, and you can see it's in a docx. And if I were to open this, it's a Microsoft Word document. It's opening it in Google Docs. I can edit and make changes to it if I want to. And if I want to, I can save it as a Google document. Or I can just keep it in the Word document and then upload or download it as needed. That was a good question. The same is true with Excel documents. So if you had a spreadsheet and you uploaded it, which I did one of these earlier this week, where I uploaded a spreadsheet from Excel, and then I can convert it into a Google Doc if I want to, or I can keep it in an Excel document. Questions on that? So I uploaded it, it's in here. If I want to organize it into a folder, I can right click and I can move it to a folder, or I could create a new folder and then move it, or I can drag and drop. On any document that you find in here, if you notice that I right clicked on it, so I went to the title, selected it, and I hit the right click button on my mouse. And there's a lot of things I can do here. I can preview it, I can share it, I can get a link directly to this document. This is one of the things that's really nice about using Google Drive, is that you don't have to attach individual documents to emails. And so that maybe someone has an older version of a file or something like that, you can have the most up-to-date information at the link. You can show the file location if you're not sure which folder you stuck it into. You can, and I see, Julia, your question, you have a hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you just revisit for us how we actually convert an existing Excel document
Sure. Yes.
into a Google Sheet? Thank you.
That's a good question. All right. So, and I'm going to come to your question, John, in just a moment, because I think that that's an individual decision, whether you'd like to or not, but there can be some benefits to it. So let's go to this question real quick of how we take an Excel document and move it into turn it into a Google Sheet. So if I'm file uploading it, and let's see what I've got on here. I've got Excel documents someplace. I just cleaned up all my stuff. So of course there's not very much. All right. So we're going to do this. And this is an Excel document that's saved on my computer. And if I select it and I hit open, it will upload it into my Google Drive. And it will retain its status as an Excel document unless I choose to make a change to it. So if I wanted to download this, or if I shared the link with you and you downloaded it, you'd be downloading an Excel document in the format that an Excel document has. So all the layout that it was saved in, and any of the formulas that were in there, etc., will be the same. So it's right here in my Excel if I were to download it. If I wanted to make it an Excel, a Google Sheet, so Sheets is the Excel version. I didn't prep with good documents here, but that's okay. I'm gonna delete it. Just drag and drop.
Good. I have not figured out why my volume
All right, guys.
on my screen is so. No.
So if you're on the document and you go to file menu, you can save it as the Google version. Now, when would you want to do that? You might want to do that for maybe you want to use some of the data tools and formatting in here. Maybe you're not planning to use it in Excel anymore. Maybe you want to link this to a Google form to have people filling in more information. You don't necessarily have to convert your documents from Word to Google Doc or from Excel to Sheets unless you want to. And I want to pause real quick and come back really quickly. So we have our drive and we have our documents. We can upload or create a fresh one. We can organize them into folders if we want to by moving them or dragging and dropping them. If you have any document and you right click it, it will give you a whole set of tools, and I would explore these, make a test document and try it out. Irma asked a question, and I've kind of mentioned this for a couple of things, and I want to go back to it really quickly. So one of the things that I really like about Google Docs is that it's easy to access anywhere, and it's really easy to share and collaborate. So you might have had this experience where you needed to share a spreadsheet of maybe information for your departments, maybe the classes that are going to be offered, or contact information, and it was constantly out of date. And so you'd email it to people or you'd have it on the shared drive, but it was hard to keep the up-to-date information available. And that's a cool thing about Google Apps, is that you can have things shared and uploaded so that folks can go to always get the most up-to-date information on there. The other thing that's really nice about accessing anywhere, we've just gone through or experienced this pandemic where we've had to at times be quarantining at home or remote working. And while some of us may have remote access through Global Protect and we can get into our desktops, not everybody does. Maybe our faculty in our division don't, or maybe an adjunct faculty member doesn't. And so this is a good way to share documents where you can give folks access to a document without them having to have VPN access into their computers. I find it pretty simple to use, but I do think that it does take some practice, and I wouldn't be afraid of practicing because everything can be undone or fixed if you need to. So I will, I see that we've got a chat on here, and I want to also show a previous version. Yes. Thank you, Irma. So let's really quickly go into the sharing information, and I'll show you these examples in a second. So Irma asked a really good question. When we look at Google Drive, you'll see different things on here, and many of us have more than one of them. So let's try this real quick. So we're in Google Drive, and you have your drive. These are all your files, and unless you choose to share them, they just stay individually yours.
I need to figure out where you guys want me. Okay.
And
that's weird. I thought it was all stated. Let me look at the. Give me the source. Give me a second.
I'll ask you to, if you have your microphone on, if you want to mute it, if you, unless you have a question.
Okay, let's see. Meredith, you are in.
Jane, can you please mute your microphone?
It didn't say, it just say office. I'm not sure what that
Jane,
means.
we can hear you.
I don't have my earphones with me.
It's okay. Let me go in real quick.
I was pulled away from Alfonso to answer phone, so I'm really really upset.
I know, that's weird.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. So your individual drive, unless you share something specifically, it'll just be like your own file storage. If you do choose to share something, then individual people can have access via a link, or they can even add a shortcut into their own drive, so it's easy for them to organize and find. Shared with me is any document or file that someone has created, and then they've made it available to you, either individually by choosing your name or by making it available to all of Los Rios. So for example, I was working with, there's a session tomorrow with Sabrina and I that is on board docs training. So if you're in a participatory governance committee and you need to help take meeting minutes or notes, we'll be providing training tomorrow. Sabrina created a presentation. She shared it with me, and it shows that it's shared by this little 2 people on there. And then if you were to look into the settings, it would have my name along with hers to be able to edit a document. All right, I'm going to pause real quick. And I'm going to click into this Google Doc over here that I had created earlier. So this is my test. I'm going to name it for our training. And if I wanted to share this document with anyone else, I can share it right over here. There's a lock in the upper right-hand corner. And right now, if I hover over it, it's private only to me. So I could put all my thoughts and hopes and dreams on it and not share it with anyone. And that would be okay. Restricted, only people with access can link it. And I'm the only person with access. Or I could add individual people. So Lori's here in this training, and I could search by her name or her employee ID number and select her. And I could give her access to edit the document or just to view it or to be a commenter. Commenting gives you the ability, similar to track changes in Microsoft Word, you could add a comment bubble or you could suggest on there as well. When I share something with a person, it allows me to notify them. So I can send a little message, here are the notes for whatever. And she'll also see the title of the document, and then she'd get a message directly in her Outlook that would have the link to this document as well as my message. If I'm sharing not just with one person, but maybe with, maybe I want to share not just with anybody to view the document, I can change the share settings on here to anyone within Los Rios Community College District. And then this might be useful if you had maybe a presentation that you did and you wanted anybody to be able to view it, or an announcement that you wanted to share with all of your division or your career and academic community. You could share it that way. Anyone with a link is another way of sharing as well. Questions about sharing? When I share something here, it'll show up in the shared with me for the other person. So if it's shared with everybody in Los Rios, then, so for example, this is a fall online PD document that was from American River College, and it was shared for everybody or individual people. Okay, doing okay?
Leslie had a question, but maybe later, Emily, I could send you a screenshot that I do have access to admissions and records, like a share, it's like a drive, but it's not under my shared with me.
Okay.
Click on that.
Yeah. So, and Leslie, I want to come to your question here in a second. The other thing that folks may see is this shared drives. And this is something that we've begun to use a little bit more over the last few years. It's another favorite for me within Google Apps, and I'm going to explain it a little bit more and how it differs from the shared with me option. But I want to see what your question is, Leslie.
I think you're about to answer it, because I didn't know how I would share something with my CAC. So I'm assuming you're going to show us right now based on shared drives. There's
a few ways you could do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, and departments too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can share. So this seems to also tie into one of the high ranking things that we had questions about, like how do we share with a whole group of people? And some of that can take a little bit of setup to start with. If you wanted to share something with your entire CAC, probably the quickest and fastest thing to do is to do this share setting and allow anyone at Los Rios Community College District to view the item. That would mean that they'd have to have logged into their apps.losrios to see it. You can make it restricted to just viewing only, not editing, right? Unless you really wanted folks to collaborate on a document or have access to change things. And then, oops, I didn't actually select it. So I've changed it to viewing, and then I can copy this link. It copies to my clipboard. It doesn't show me what it is, but then I could type up an email and add that link in there for my whole CAC to see. That's the quickest and fastest way to share something with a big group through Google Docs. Now, if it's something that has any kind of confidentiality that maybe, so for example, in the library, we deal with student loans. We don't typically share information out about who has borrowed what items. That's kind of a professional privacy that we keep within library staff. So I wouldn't share that with all Los Rios. I would only share it with the individual person that needed the information if I shared it through here. Okay. So what's the difference between sharing an individual item by item, or a shared drive? So a shared drive is, it's very similar to the way CRC IT use shared drives on our networked computers on campus. So if you've been at CRC for a while, this is something that our IT department has set up, and there's shared drives for the library or for financial aid. And then there's documents that can be shared internally by folks who have been given access to that drive. So shared drives are the same idea, but you can create them in Google Drive. Those of you who served an accreditation over when we were drafting our ICER, this is what we used. We used a shared drive. And the reason why we did this is we wanted lots of people to have access. We wanted them to have access to add and remove or edit documents without going one by one and sharing everything. And we're going to need to store a lot of files and kind of have them organized together, as opposed to everybody having their individual copies. That would have been too stressful. So a shared drive is really useful when you need to work collaboratively on a lot of stuff or have access to a wide range of documents together. Another way that I use this is for the library, we do a lot of district-wide collaboration. So the libraries on all the 4 colleges, we have our own committees, and we organize and work on training together or create materials together. We use shared drives for that reason. So you'll see some people, ebook committee, systems librarians, and so forth. Those are collaborative workspaces for us. Inside of a shared drive, you can do all the things you can do in your own individual one. You can create folders, you can upload documents, you can create new documents. But the important thing to know is that anybody who has access to that drive will have access to all the stuff in the documents. So if I give all the people on the list access to view, they can view anything in there. So it's really intended to be for group use. So for your CAC, could you put all the faculty and staff from that CAC in a drive? You totally could. It would take a little bit of work on the setup, but then they're all in there. And then you upload documents and everybody can get into the same folders and see the same training materials. We use this for that. And so there were training materials that we could all get into and meeting notes that we could all get into and so forth. All right, did I overwhelm you with shared drives? I would hesitate about going crazy on shared drives. They're really useful when you have the need to work together or have several documents shared between a group. If it's just one thing or a couple a semester, an individual sharing a document can be useful. The other thing you can do is, we did this document share. You can also share a folder. So I created, to prepare for this, I have a lot of content in here, so don't be overwhelmed, hopefully. But my Google Apps Classified Professional Day, this is my folder that has my form that we used and my presentation, and I can just share it right here. I can share the folder with all of you. And so I could put your names in here, and I'll do that before we leave today. And then you could access the materials and see them after today if you wanted to. Make a copy of them if you needed, or view them and use them again. Okay. I'm mindful of time and I want to get through a few more things. So I want to kind of revisit back to a few of the other questions that we had. Collaborating with groups, and this, yeah. So let's see how to create a folder, and I'll create a folder right where I am at right now. You can create a new folder, and I can title it whatever I want to. So this is my practice folder within my Google Apps. So it's actually nested in a couple of levels, and you can see the file path here. It's in my drive. I have an instruction folder, my Google Apps classified professional day, and this is my practice folder inside of it. And then if I wanted to share this with you, I can share it and I can change it to anyone with within Los Rios or not. So why do some of the folders have the person icon and some don't? The person icon means that it's shared, and before I shared it, it would not show. So if I went into this Google Apps folder so you could see it, that one I have not shared with anybody. It's just me who can view and access and own or edit any of the documents unless I shared them individual by individual. One thing that's good to know about sharing too is if I share something on the folder level, so if I share this with you and added a person's name on here, maybe I said that Leslie can edit this. She has access to it and she'll get a little notification on her screen that says, here you go, Emily shared this with you. Now she has access to go into any of the documents in here and edit them. So that is something to keep in mind. If you share a folder, they get the same level of access for everything unless you go item by item and take it away from that person. All right. If you want to stay when we wrap up our time, I know that there's other events today, so I don't want to keep you, but if you have questions and want to test things out with me, I'm happy to do that. The last thing about sharing that I wanted to mention actually goes along with another question that was on here, which was groups, communicating with a group. And I am going to give you one more piece of information that you can think about if you'd be interested in it or not. And if you want to do this, I can share with you more experience from my side. So I mentioned that in the library, we do a lot of collaboration with other librarians at different colleges. So we've actually created ourselves some groups within Google Apps. And if you go, so navigation wise, I'm in my drive. I chose the apps icon in the upper right-hand corner, and I scrolled down and I was looking for groups. And groups is a way that you can select a group of people that could be an email list or that could have access to a drive very quickly. So I don't have to say all, I don't know, 50 librarians in the district. I can just give access to the whole group at one time. Groups is a way that you can add individual people. This is a smaller group. So it's got individual people and you can have message strings on here similar to Teams. And then you can send an email to the whole group at once if you wanted to. If you're interested in doing this, feel free to check in with me. There are some challenges at times too. So I can give you my experience on it. All right. So we went through navigation of how to get in. We talked about sharing on different levels, the individual file level, the folder level, or a drive level. We talked a little bit about creating and uploading documents into Drive. I do want to show a few more examples and then kind of touch back to some of the things that we wanted to learn here. So other examples, so Google Drive is like storage, and then there's a lot of things that you can create within that. And they really are often kind of comparable to what you have in Microsoft Office. So for example, I created this presentation. It's like a PowerPoint, but it's in Drive. So it's called a slide. Slides is the tool. So if I went to in my Drive, I can create new and a Google slide, or I could go into the slides, kind of just the slide area. And in the slides area by itself, there are presentation examples and things like that, or you could find all the slides you've created. And or you could take a PowerPoint and upload it and modify it. So you have any of those three ways to use to create a slide presentation. When you're in here, it navigates and works very similar to PowerPoint. There's always going to be some things you can do in one that you don't do as easily in the other, but that's okay. But I use slides for presentation quite frequently, especially when it's collaborative. I told you I updated this presentation from 4 years ago. So these little guys, this little one started kindergarten last week. So that's how time flies, right? I mentioned earlier that I use Google Forms for scheduling. So Google Forms is what you saw at the very beginning when I asked you questions about what you wanted to learn today. And you can create a form to get really quick survey responses or really in-depth survey responses if you want. This is something I use quite frequently in the library. I use it for scheduling. I use it for getting student feedback because I don't always have access to students through a class roster or through a discussion board in Canvas. I can get their information another way, signups for events and so forth. When I'm creating a form, I can do that in Google Drive. It's a Google form. It will ask you, I'm putting it in a shared folder. It's asking me if I really want to do this because it's going to be shared automatically. So I'm creating and sharing. And then I can go step by step. I can title it. I can create my question. I can change the look and feel of it and so forth. I'll give you access to my folder so you'll be able to see a form and copy and kind of see how it's made behind the scenes. When you create a form though, the nice thing about it is then once people fill it out, so this is my form editing where I can change things and I get my responses and I can see them in bulk, but I can also do a lot of things with them. If I needed to see individual responses, like for scheduling, then I can see, okay, this person's available on this day, or I can put things into a spreadsheet. So we use this in the library sometimes where we'll input data via a form, and then we'll have a spreadsheet of all of the responses there too. You can close them down when you're not using them any longer and change the settings and share options on there too. All right, let's look back at our responses. We saw some basic navigation. We saw a little bit about forms. We didn't create one yet. Do we want to practice doing that together? That was a high ranking thing. All right, should we try it together? So you can do this on your own screen or if you'd like to follow along with me here. So I'm creating a form under new and then I can select Google Forms. And this is just going to be a duplicate. Forgive all the tabs open. All right, I can title it. So if I title it here, this will be my Google Apps Get to Know. You can create it whatever you want to. You can create add in a form description. So what would you like to learn? Or maybe instructions for filling out the form. And Google is updating their tools. So this is actually really nice because you have some editing tools that did not exist last year. So you have the ability to create add a link in here if folks need to go out and see something. When I create my form, I have kind of my heading, and then I can add in questions. So a question can be a multiple choice question, could be a short answer question like what's your name? I used a drop down when I created my form. You can do linear scales, so kind of like a Likert scale, like from 1 to 5, ranking something, and so forth. You can have folks put in their information, like if you needed to gather the date that they filled out the form or the time, and have that recorded as well. When you add a question, you can choose whether it's required or not required. And so I do this sometimes when I'm surveying, I won't make everything required. I just want folks to feel comfortable filling out what they want to share, but maybe you need certain data and this is your quality control to include it. You can make it required. I can add additional questions by this plus. If I'm importing questions, so this might be helpful from instructors if you have a question bank that you're bringing things in from. Sometimes I'll do really long forms. So I do this with scheduling sometimes where I'll have a section and then I'll maybe my first set of questions is about your availability. And then my second set of questions is about your training needs and so forth. And I'll add different sections in there. You can add in videos and images and slideshows, and you can change the sections to another part. After you've added some information in here, you also have a few options on here, and I kind of go from the top and then I go up to the upper right. So the responses, there's no responses yet because I haven't sent it out. Once I have responses, I can link this to a spreadsheet, which is really useful for data if I need to track or have someone else have access to the results of the survey. I can get email notifications when I get new responses. So if somebody fills out the survey, we use this in the library, sometimes when students will request things, we get an email notification when we've gotten a new response. And I can download them if I needed to. Settings on here, you can make it a quiz. So instructors, this is your ability to kind of, if you wanted to have a quiz outside of Canvas, which I'm not sure that you will necessarily want to. Responses, so for example, maybe you want to collect information about the person, or maybe you want to keep it anonymous. Maybe you want people to be able to change their response after the fact or not. Limit it to only Los Rios, or maybe you need folks from the high school to be able to fill it out. You could change that too. And then in the responses, you can also manage how people progress through it and what kind of response they get when they submit it. Up in the corner, I can customize, I can change the theme and the images. I can preview what I've created and see what it looks like if I were filling it out myself. I can undo or redo something, and then when I'm ready, I can send it out. And I can send it by email, gather a link, or create an embed iframe. All right, there's quite a bit we could do if with more time, but I do want to just follow one thing that folks had a question about. So when we were talking earlier, there was a question about, could I undo something that I just did? And Google Apps is nice because it's saving as you go along throughout your time. So you notice in document and also through my form that my changes, my last edits were here. And maybe I want to undo something. I deleted a question that I didn't want to delete on my form, and I can undo it really easily. If I'm in a document, so I'm clicking back over to my Google Doc here, and I can see my last edit was 24 minutes ago. And if I click on it, it'll show me who made the last edit, and it'll allow me to revert back to any other versions if I needed to. I can either preview and see what the changes were, or if I needed to go back to an old version, I could. All right. I see that we're close to time's up, and I see a few folks have had to leave us. If you would like to stay and if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to chat with you. If you have questions after today, I'm at the library. You can email me at bondE@CRC, or you can give me a call, and I'm happy to assist you. If you have something that you're trying to puzzle through for your own department and area, I'm happy to assist you as well. So thank you very much for your time and for joining us today, and I hope it was useful for you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, John.